25 acres. That's the size this fire was reported at yesterday afternoon. By this morning, it had burned more than 50,000. That's not a typo, and it's not a slow-building wildfire story. That's a 2,000 times increase in size in less than 18 hours. Here's the number I want you watching, and it's not the final acreage. It's a temperature, because that single number explains why this fire grew so fast, and it's why firefighters themselves are having to be pulled off the line for their own safety. Let's start with what happened and when, because the timeline here is genuinely the whole story. The Ross fire started Monday afternoon near Ross Watson Road in Palo Pinto County, Texas, roughly 60 miles west of Fort Worth. The fire was first estimated at 25 acres. By evening, it had grown to 10,000 acres. By early Tuesday morning, Palo Pinto ESD1 confirmed it had passed 18,000 acres in just 12 hours. By 6:30 a.m. Tuesday, the total was more than 50,000 acres. Containment sits at 5%. A mandatory evacuation is in effect for southern Jack County, along County Road 2210 toward Highway 281. After a separate spot, fire broke out and began spreading northeast. In Palo Pinto County, evacuation is advised for the area north of Fortune Bend Road, extending to Texas Highway 16 north. Officials have confirmed damage to 3 or 4 structures so far, with more remaining directly at risk. U.S. Highway 180 is closed entirely between South FM 4 and FM 917 because of the fire. Jacksboro ISD delayed its start time by 2 hours. Perrin CISD canceled school for the day entirely. An evacuation shelter has been set up at the Twin Lakes Activity Center on Highway 59 in Jacksboro. Drop a comment if you're anywhere near Palo Pinto or Jack County right now, or if you've got family out that way. Because a fire that grew this fast is exactly where I want to know what's actually happening on the ground. It's worth naming exactly how quickly this fire outran its own initial size estimate, since that specific detail explains why so many nearby residents had so little advance warning. A 25-acre grass fire is genuinely small by wildfire standards, the kind of fire local volunteer departments handle regularly, without triggering any regional alert at all. Nothing about that initial size would have suggested to anyone nearby that within 18 hours, the exact same fire would require a multi-agency response spanning 2 counties, mandatory evacuations, and a temporary flight restriction covering the entire area. It's worth understanding exactly how fire officials actually measure and report acreage in real time, since a number this large, updating this quickly, might sound like guesswork to anyone unfamiliar with modern wildfire mapping. Infrared-equipped aircraft flying over an active fire can map its exact perimeter through smoke. Feeding that data directly into geographic information systems that calculate total burned acreage within minutes of each flight. That's precisely how officials could confirm the jump from 18,000 to more than 50,000 acres between Monday night and Tuesday morning with genuine confidence, rather than offering only a rough estimate based on what ground crews could visually observe from their own limited vantage points. It's worth naming exactly what a 50,000-acre fire actually looks like in terms of physical scale, since the number alone can be genuinely hard to picture without a concrete reference point. That's roughly 78 square miles, an area larger than the city of Fort Worth itself, burning through ranch land in under 18 hours. Picturing an area that size, not flat urban development, but rolling, drought-stressed ranch country helps explain exactly why. And containing even 5% of this fire's total perimeter already represents securing several genuine miles of active fire line. It's worth mentioning exactly how residents in this specific corridor actually receive evacuation alerts, since rural Texas counties rely on different notification systems than dense urban areas. County-level reverse 911 systems, social media posts from sheriff's offices, and word passed directly between neighbors on large rural properties all play a role, meaning the speed and reliability of that first warning can vary considerably, depending on exactly where someone lives relative to cell coverage and how actively they're monitoring official channels during an actively developing fire. If tracking real wildfire behavior and the actual conditions driving fires like this one interests you, subscribing costs nothing. It means you'll be here for the update once containment numbers actually improve. Here's the temperature number I promised you. On August 24th, this region hit a record 109 degrees Fahrenheit. Texas A&M Forest Service spokesperson Matt Turner described exactly what that heat did to the response itself. Our firefighters are now having to deal with that high heat and high temperature, meaning they can't work for quite as long. They cannot work as long without risking some serious health injuries. Crews are having to rotate fires in and out specifically because of extreme heat. This is a genuine operational limit on how fast this fire can actually be surrounded, regardless of personnel or aircraft assigned to it. Let's talk about the fuel type specifically, because this isn't a forest fire burning through timber. The Ross fire is a grass fire. That distinction matters enormously for why it grew this fast. Grass fires can spread far faster than fires burning through heavier timber fuels. Dry grass ignites almost instantly and carries flame across open ground at speeds that can outrun a person on foot. Combined with the region's extreme drought, no measurable rainfall, and gusty winds, officials cited that exact combination as the cause. Dry vegetation, lack of rain, and gusty winds are creating elevated wildfire conditions across the entire region right now. Here's how wind direction specifically connects the Ross Fire to the separate evacuation order in Jack County. Winds from the south have been pushing fire activity directly northward, which is precisely why a spot fire broke out to the north. The smaller ignition, sparked by embers carried ahead of the main fire, prompted its own mandatory evacuation in southern Jack County. That's a critical mechanism worth understanding. A wildfire this size doesn't just grow at its own edges. Wind-carried embers can start entirely new fires miles ahead of the main fire's actual perimeter. Let's talk about the aerial response specifically, because it shows the scale of resources actually being committed to this fire. The Texas Interstate Fire Mutual Aid System has deployed a strike team alongside the Texas A&M Forest Service, supporting ground crews with both dozers and aircraft. A temporary flight restriction has been placed over the fire area. This is specifically to keep the airspace clear for firefighting aircraft making repeated water and retardant drops. Let's talk about exactly how a temporary flight restriction actually works, since it's a specific federal aviation tool. The FAA issues a TFR to legally bar all non-firefighting aircraft, including drones, from a specific block of airspace directly over a wildfire. That restriction exists because firefighting aircraft need to make repeated low-altitude water drops without the danger of colliding with a drone. Violating an active TFR during a wildfire response isn't a minor infraction. It's treated as a genuine safety threat. It is capable of grounding the entire aerial firefighting operation until the airspace is confirmed clear again. Let's talk about the specific heat safety protocols firefighters themselves have to follow during conditions like this one. Matt Turner's comment about rotating crews reflects a genuinely standardized safety practice, not an improvised response. Wildland firefighters face real risk of heat exhaustion and heat stroke, which can become life-threatening when wearing heavy gear. Fire agencies build in mandatory rest and rehydration cycles specifically to prevent that outcome. This rotation schedule represents the exact safety margin keeping firefighters healthy enough to keep responding through a multi-day incident. Let's talk about how mutual aid actually gets triggered for a fire growing at this specific rate. TIFMAS operates as a coordinated statewide network specifically designed to move resources to wherever the need is greatest. A fire growing from 25 to 50,000 acres within 18 hours represents a rapid escalation that triggers an immediate large-scale response. Local Palo Pinto County resources were never going to be sufficient once the fire's growth rate became clear within those first several hours. Let's talk about the livestock response, because this region is genuinely ranching country, and that changes what evacuation actually means for a lot of families here. The Graham Livestock Commission announced it's offering space for displaced livestock at the old Mineral Wells sale barn, giving ranchers a temporary place to move cattle. That's a genuinely different evacuation challenge than a typical suburban wildfire. Loading a family into a car takes minutes. Moving a herd of cattle out of a fire's path takes considerably more time, trailers, and help from neighbors. This region sits directly in the Palo Pinto Mountains area, ranch country with scattered homes and working cattle operations spread across wide distances. A fire growing from 25 acres to 50,000 in under 18 hours doesn't give most people the days of advance warning a slower disaster might. If you have family ranching or living anywhere in this corridor, this is genuinely a good moment to check in directly. Let's talk about how this fire connects to the broader wildfire activity that's already hit this exact county this year. Just months earlier, the Dempsey Fire burned 11,000 acres in the same county, west of Mineral Wells, prompting its own evacuations. That's the second major grass fire this county has faced within the same year, both driven by the same underlying drought and heat conditions. Here's the honest context worth understanding about containment percentages. 5% containment doesn't mean crews have made minimal progress. It means crews have secured 5% of what is now a massive 50,000 acre perimeter, a genuinely difficult task. As a fire's total size grows, the actual physical distance crews need to secure to reach full containment grows right along with it. Much of north and central Texas has been experiencing extreme to exceptional drought conditions this summer, the most severe categories. That level of sustained dryness is precisely what let a 25-acre spark become a 50,000-acre fire before residents even knew it had started. Officials have been managing several other active fires and evacuation situations across neighboring counties at the exact same time. The Ross Fire is competing for attention and equipment against several other active incidents happening at the same time. It's worth explaining the insurance reality facing ranch families, since a wildfire this size threatens both structures and the land itself. Agricultural insurance often requires separate riders specifically covering livestock loss, fencing, and outbuildings beyond a standard homeowner's policy. Ranchers who lost fencing or grazing land to the Dempsey Fire earlier this year now face the possibility of a second insurance claim. This is a compounding financial burden layered directly on top of the physical recovery work itself. I want to be honest about something here, because it would be easy to let a story with a growth rate this dramatic spiral. As of the most recent reporting, officials have confirmed damage to 3 or 4 structures, not a mass loss of homes across the fire's footprint. A fire this large, moving through open ranch land, genuinely produces a different damage pattern than the same acreage burning through a suburban area. So here's the honest, complete picture of what's actually happening across Palo Pinto and Jack County right now. A grass fire that started at 25 acres Monday afternoon has burned past 50,000 acres by Tuesday morning, driven by record heat and extreme drought, driven by gusty winds. Containment sits at 5%. A mandatory evacuation covers southern Jack County. Highway 180 remains closed. And firefighters themselves are being rotated off the line because the heat has become dangerous for the people fighting it, not just the communities. If there is one sentence to take away from this video, let it be this. A fire that grows so fast isn't a story about one spark. It's a story about exactly how much fuel record heat and extreme drought had already loaded into this landscape, waiting for any ignition at all. But based on everything here, do you think this fire gets meaningfully contained within the next 48 hours, or does it keep growing? Drop your prediction in the comments. If you're in Palo Pinto, Jack, or Parker County, please don't rely on this video for your evacuation status. The Texas A&M Forest Service's fire map and your county's own emergency management office are the official sources for real-time updates. And if you're a rancher or you live in this stretch of North Texas, drop a comment and tell us what evacuating actually looks like. Reports from people genuinely living through this tell us more than any official statement can, and I read every single one. If this video helped you, hit that like button. Subscribe so you don't miss that update. We'll see you in the next one. It's worth explaining what genuine practical preparedness actually looks like for anyone living across this specific ranch country corridor. Ranchers are advised to identify evacuation routes for both people and animals well before fire season peaks. Know which facilities, like the old Mineral Wells sale barn, could take displaced livestock on short notice. Keep basic transport equipment, trailers, and halters readily accessible rather than stored somewhere that might become unreachable. A fire that grows 2,000 times its original size within 18 hours isn't really a story about one specific spark. It's a story about exactly how much drought-stressed fuel had accumulated across this landscape, sitting ready to burn. Understanding that underlying vulnerability matters more than any single acreage number, because it's the difference between treating this fire as a freak occurrence and recognizing the conditions that made this growth possible.